Halftime Radio Show. It is your boy Uncle JB, and today we have a great podcast lined up. I'm super excited for everybody to get to know this individual. I got an opportunity to sit down with her and talk to her for a while, and I thought that having a podcast with her would be absolutely amazing. So I'm super excited to introduce everybody. Miss Gabriella, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for making the drive down. And come on,
braving the 35.
Braving the crazy 35.
So bad.
All that traffic. I'm glad that they're kind of expanding it, but I like to think that it's gonna be traffic anyway after they get finished, and it's gonna be more they're gonna be doing, and it's like a constant just battle. I feel like Texas construction is that's the way it is. Yeah. But I'm so happy that you made it down here. And
thank you for having me.
I'm super excited about this conversation. Yeah. And before we get into all the details and topics of your life and your journey, I would love to just take a moment for you to share with the family who you are, where you're from, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just go from there.
Cool. Yeah. My name's Gabriella. I'm 33. Been living here in Austin, Texas for about 6 years. Was born in South Florida, and I've lived in 8 states, which is crazy when I tell people that. I've lived all over. Yeah, I've had like mailing addresses in 8 states. I work at a sports streaming company called Flow Sports. So we're an OTT sports streaming platform. Our biggest are like dirt track racing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, track. A lot of like niche sports, which is really fun because the people who love those sports love those sports, like they live, eat, and breathe it. And I'm a very passionate person, so I feel like that's what resonated with me. And I was actually hired for rodeo, so my background's rodeo. I have a journalism degree from Arizona State, but very quickly in college, I got involved in rodeo and started my own company called Rodeo Rex. It's still around. I no longer own it, but it's still around. Okay, that's awesome. And so Flo reached out to me. They were building their rodeo business then, and rodeo is no longer really a thing, but I've just stuck around for 6 years. But I guess a little other things about me. I love photography. I've been into photography since I was like 18 years old. I have a tattoo of a camera. Like, it is a big part of who I am. Yeah. And I love doing action photography the most in like candid people. I don't want to do like posed. And it's just like I modeled for a little while, and that was fun to be like on the other side of it. But like I want to capture like the essence of a person. I don't want you to be like, if I shoot you, right, we go out and be like, where's your favorite place? Let's just like walk around and like we'll figure out what to do. I don't have like a whole preconceived plan, which is like hard to make money that way, so I don't make money that way. But I love cooking. I love working out. I've been working out since I was like 13, so 20 years I've been working out. Yeah, I did Olympic lifting, competed in that. I did CrossFit, did jiu-jitsu for a while, but my heart's in just like bodybuilding. So I was training to compete, but now I don't.
So that's awesome, real quick, the bodybuilding. I think that's dope. You said you've been lifting for 20 years. How long have you been doing the bodybuilding aspect?
I would say kind of like on and off for like 8 years. There were 2 years that I had a coach and was like really training really hard to like actually try to compete like on the stage. But like the dieting aspect of bodybuilding is so intense, and this particular individual was like really good at getting results, but his approach was very like restrictive. And I am very goal oriented, so I was like, this is the thing. And I kind of like, there's an aspect of bodybuilding where you can get close to a show where you're just like really, really, you're just hungry, you're just starving. And I started to think about food more than like anything else. I was tired all the time, I was hungry all the time. I was breaking out really bad. I didn't have like a menstrual cycle for 2 years. It was crazy. Oh, wow. Yeah. But I was like so committed to the goal that the signals from my body that were like, hey, like we're tired, we're hungry, I just ignored them. And there is an aspect of that in bodybuilding, but I remember when I was coming up to my birthday and I really didn't have cheat meals or anything at this point, and I just like planned what I was going to eat, like how I was going to gorge myself for like my birthday for like 3 weeks, and I was like, oh, like this is a problem. So I just stopped and gained like 80 pounds. I was 143 at my smallest. I sit around 180 right now. So 40 pounds less than what I am right now. And I gained all the weight back, and my body went haywire, and really just like working through a lot of like, how do I view myself, my own self-worth, how I, at the time, my worth was tied to my weight. And then it's hard, like when you're like super lean, you can see all your muscles and abs and everything, and all of a sudden you can't see any of that. Yeah. And even now I catch myself being like, oh man, if I could just like lose 10 pounds, I'd be like so much leaner. And I'm like, I'm happy. And I don't weigh everything I eat. I don't have to think about anything. And I just like eat what I want, and it's fine. And I work out, and I'm strong, and I don't hurt all the time. And like, I have a curvy butt. Like, it is what it is. This is where I haven't been tracking anything I've been eating, and I've really sat around 175 to 180, and I don't have to think about it. So yeah, it's just weird, like goals, right? You have different goals for different periods of your life.
Right. And it's kind of funny how you said like you're like in a way like starving yourself, stressing yourself out to make these goals, like counting your macros, like, you know, really taking all the fine little details, but it's beating yourself up at the same time as well. You know, you said you were doing that a little bit, I think, for self-worth.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I started bodybuilding because, like, real talk, somebody rejected me and was like, maybe you should think about getting smaller instead of bigger. And I was like, well, I'll show you. Yeah. And so there was definitely a toxic. If I had gone into it with, I think, a better mindset, I would have quit sooner. Because I really loved the way that I looked like a year in. Yeah. And then I just kept kind of going too far, I think. And then my body started to eat some of that muscle, which it does when you get that lean. But it was a learning experience. Like, I learned how to like meal prep, and I learned how to like understand what I need to fuel my body, and learned about protein and and it was a great part of my life in many ways. And it also showed me that like I'm so disciplined if I want to be. And now I'm back to, for a while I was just kind of like doing a lot of hypertrophy and a lot of like kettlebells and kind of like push-pull leg split. And now I'm kind of back to more of like I like to call it like a bro-ish split, and doing reverse pyramids because I want to get bigger. I want to see my muscles more, but I don't want to diet. So I'm like, I'll just get bigger. And I'm very, very grateful and fortunate that my body type and my genetics, I for a woman, I build muscle very quickly. And that's a blessing. And I also think that stewarding my body this way and being able to like move my body and move big weights and be strong is like a testament to the body that God gave me. So like if I don't do those things, I feel like I'm not honoring who God made me to be. And also like maybe I'm just there is that little like bit of like bro-ish like bodybuilder inside of me where I'm like, oh man, like look at my muscles, look at my triceps, it looks so good, you know. So yeah, I love it. I love the gym is my happy place. I feel like it's a jungle. I walk in there and I'm like, I'm the queen in the jungle, and there's no place that I feel safer and no place that I feel more powerful or more feminine or strong and just awesome. Like I love it. I love going to the gym. Yeah, I would say I am very alpha in that I'm very driven. I'm very goal oriented, career oriented. My mom's the same way. She's very like, she is like, her nickname's literally the general. Like you get things done, you call in the general's gonna get it done. She's like, what's happening? Right? For me, I think I was modeled a strong woman who was the main caretaker of the household. My dad went to work. My mom stopped working when I'm the oldest of four. So when the twins came along, she stopped working. But she was like, got everything done, cooked, cleaned, did all the finances for all the household, right? And so I was modeled a very strong woman with opinions. And, you know, my parents they're a partnership in like the best way. And, I'm really grateful to be modeled that. And so in my own life, a couple years ago, 6-7 years ago, I was with somebody who was really, really abusive, emotionally and mentally, and it really broke me. And then building myself up back from that, I kind of found my own strength again, and I've really leaned into that of like being like this alpha female and being strong. And one of the things I say to myself in the gym is like, I fear no man, I envy no woman. I'm trying to think that outside of the gym too. It's hard. Like, it's such a safe space. And then I go into the world and I'm like, oh, somebody's looking at me. Why are they looking at me? Right. I'm trying to just be like, no, be confident. It's fine. And even though I feel very threatened, I'm working through all that right now. But yeah, as far as like the femininity aspect of it, I feel like, especially what we talked about, is like in Austin, I feel like there's like a very certain, I don't know if it's like the South or if it's Texas in general, but most of the women I see are like, they just kind of look the same. And not like in a bad way, but it is very like copy paste. Like I feel like very slender, very small, very slim, very beautiful, lots of makeup and looking cute all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to like say anything being wrong with that, right? But like I stand out. I'm 5'8", 180, muscular, right? Like I feel very different. And I, when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I had a coach and he talked one time and it really hit me. And it's always been with me since then. He was like, when you walk around with your head held high, with your chest out, with like, you are proud of who you are. And I was like, oh man, like I am proud of who I am. So I should walk around with my head held high. And I just feel like the energy that I have is so intense. I'm a very intense person. And so, yeah, I just feel like sometimes I don't fit into the mold of what at least American society considers to be like super feminine. When I went overseas to London and Brussels and Bruges, I felt a lot different. I actually felt like like all types of men were approaching me that normally wouldn't here.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting.
It was so interesting. And it felt more easier to open up to them because I felt like they weren't looking at me as like something to conquer, is what I feel like a lot in the States or just in Austin, where I feel like men just like want to fetishize me, or like there's like this muscle mommy movement right now. I feel like
muscle mommy movement is what we're into right now, huh?
Is a thing. But it's I struggle a lot with that, wanting to fit in and wanting to be what I perceive to be what men want. And especially growing up in the 90s, like I don't know how old you were, but I'm 33, right? So in the 90s, like it was all about like the Paris Hilton, like Nicole Richie era of like really like touting like anorexia, you know what I mean? And being like, you should be small and not seen. And like looking back on some of the stuff now, I'm like, wow, that's so toxic. But that's what I grew up with. And so undoing all of that, like, I'm not trying to blame everything on society. Part of this is my own whatever.
Yeah, I get it. But at the same time, I mean, you think about it, every generation, every 10 years, there's a new trend. Women should be this way. You know, you should be this way. You should be this way. And, you know, one day Kim Kardashian has a big butt, next day she doesn't. Yeah. You know, there's this wave of trends, and instead it should be just be who you are. You know, accept who you are. It's okay to walk in your skin because you are uniquely created and made to be who you are. Yeah. And it should just be that simple. And I can't, again, like as a man, I can't sit here and say like it's that simple. Like don't think about what everybody else says. But again, society does play a very large role in, you know, cultivating young adults. And there's things that we have to be able to deal with, you know, later. It's like, you know what, I am beautiful, no matter what the world says. Yeah. And you might have to fight to get to that point, but it's worth the fight.
I mean, I did. This is the first year, when I tell people this, they like don't believe me. But this is the first year that I look myself in the mirror and been like, you're beautiful. You're amazing. And this is like, I modeled last year and still didn't feel that way. And I haven't modeled this year because I started to feel objectified. And it wasn't anything anybody did. It just, I didn't want to show off that way. Yeah. But this is the first year where I'm like, oh, people might not just be staring at you because of XYZ. They might be looking because you're actually beautiful and your features are different and you're naturally beautiful. Like I'm very fortunate that like I don't feel like I need to wear makeup in order to feel beautiful. I don't wear makeup at all. Like maybe concealer. I have like hella bags under my eyes. I've been trying to cover them up because I'm tired all the time. But I also see that as like privilege. And then just how do I steward my own self? How do I steward the gifts that have been given to me? How do I like wear the clothes that I want, but also be cognizant that like I could be perceived a certain way. And so like just being aware of all those things, but also still being like, no, like this is what I want to wear. This is what I want to wear. So yeah, there's like a lot of things I think just like as a woman, I'm sure as a man too, but as a woman, I think about like so many different angles of things, and maybe that's just my own brain. But I just think that, yeah, the topic of like, what is a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? I wrote a poem once about that. Yeah, it was all about like, I mean, I can pull it up, but it was basically about that you're supposed to be sweet and soft, but at the same time strong. It was a lot of the same theme as that the speech in the Barbie movie. I don't know if you watched the Barbie movie.
I did watch the Barbie movie.
Yeah, that speech made me cry the first time I saw it.
Huh?
Yes, because it's true. You're supposed to be this, but not do this, right? You're supposed to be look sexy, but not be sexual. You're supposed to, you know what I mean? And it's like this back and forth.
That's facts.
And so, anyways, I feel I'm doing a lot of work right now in therapy to just be like, how do I accept myself how I am? Started reading Bruce Lee's daughter wrote a book about his philosophy, and it's called Be Water, My Friend.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And it's so interesting. His whole philosophy is about the be water, but that a water is unstoppable, and so it'll always find a way through. It'll always find a way to keep going, but always water is itself, and it can change, but it's still itself, and it knows its core. And so I feel like that's the work I'm in right now. Is like, who am I fundamentally? That can change from day to day, but like, who am I fundamentally? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's okay, like with the whole modeling, right? Like you didn't necessarily, your heart necessarily wasn't in it after a while, but that's okay. Like you understand behind the scenes, the actual person taking the pictures, that's probably where you want to be instead. And so that's like the same thing with that example of being water. It's going to flow this direction. It's going to flow this direction. And it might meet back up because it doesn't want to be going this way. It wants to go this way. You just, again, if you're being water, then you're letting life, you're letting God flow you through this life. You know what I mean? So I think that's super sick. And then you said you were, I know I'm kind of going back.
Listen, I have ADD, so I'm following. Okay. The ping pongs, I'm here for.
It's okay. I just have like, I'm some things pop in my head. So when you were overseas, right, you said you, men kind of treated you differently there. Are you originally from overseas or no? Or,
no, I mean, my like ethnicity would be like Romanian, Lithuanian, Cuban. Okay. So that's my mom's side. Nobody knows what my dad's side is. I should take the like 23andMe. Honestly, I'm so like interested because I feel like I don't look like anybody else. Yeah. But yeah.
And then is your family everybody here in Texas? Or?
No, I'm. My parents are in Pittsburgh with my brother and his wife.
Okay.
And then my other brother's in Fresno, California, and my sister's in Washington D.C. with her fiance. Oh, wow. So we're all over.
Everybody's kind of spread out a little bit.
Very spread out.
That's awesome. You said you're the oldest.
And
there's twins.
So there's me, my brother's 3 years younger than me, and then twins.
Got you. Okay. That's awesome.
Boy, girl, twins. So there's 2 boys, 2 girls in my family.
That's dope. Yeah. That's cool. So like, do you get a chance to go hang out with them often? Like as far as like seeing your family and stuff like that?
Yeah, we try to do something like every year that we all get together. Logistically, it's the hardest for my brother in Fresno because Fresno's just like middle of nowhere. But he works on the Caltrain project, which is actually really interesting. He's an engineer. Cool. He's so smart. Both my all my siblings are super smart. My other brother's a neurosurgeon, and then my sister went to Wharton, and she's just like super smart, business minded. But this year, actually, my cousin got married, so we're all together for that. And then my sister's getting married, so we're all getting together for that. So it's been really great. Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been good to see everybody, to have like excuses to like come together and just have fun. And then at my cousin's wedding, me and my brother, who's not married, shared a room. And it was just fun to just like, we always just go back to being like kids. Whenever we're together, all the same inside jokes, all the same whatever. And we all know we don't stay in touch as much as I would like us to, but when we're all together, they still know me. And I actually think, going back to the thing about the core of who you are, like my brother Steven, he just makes fun of everybody. It's just like his shtick, and he knows me so well still to this day, and it just makes me really happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're here. You're going to be going to the weddings, the wedding season, I would say. So, are you going to be taking a date from Austin? How's the dating scene out here? How's it?
Awful.
Is it
awful.
I've heard that it's bad, but
it's not great.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Expound on that a little bit. Do you think, is it because the alpha femininity type of quality? Because you said earlier, you feel like a lot of women are the same.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. Austin, as much as like, how long you been here?
I've been here since 2019.
Okay, so you're a long time too.
Yeah.
Typically, people don't stay here that long.
No.
It's like transient, right? Like people are here for like a year or two and then they leave.
Yeah. Yep.
So I feel like that's the first problem is like people are here for like, if you're going the apps right? Like people are here for the weekend or they're here for a week or they're here for a work thing. And like half the pool is just here and then they're gone. Or they see Austin as like a stepping stone to the next step in their career. So they're not really trying to like settle down. There's also like, I've heard many women refer to it this way, like this Peter Pan syndrome going on in Austin where like guys just don't grow up. So like, for example, I got my partying I did in my rodeo days when I was like 23, 24, 25. Okay. Like that was like party hard, getting drunk, all the things, right? But like Austin's so weird. I see like the tech bros going out and they're like 33, 34, 35, just getting like wasted. And I'm like, did y'all not do this? Did you not get this out of your system? Do you understand what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I understand.
Yeah. And I'm just like...
I see some of y'all tech bros going out and
yeah, it's because they got that tech bro money. They're like, let's go and get like bottle service at the Rose Room. And I'm like, no, let's not do that. So there's some of that where I'm past my partying years. So I just like I don't drink honestly like at all. Yeah. Just because I train too much, and now I just feel like once you hit 30, if you're not 30 yet, it's coming. When you hit 30, you can no longer, your hangovers are like days.
I'm out for, I'm 31, so like I'm out for like
days.
Solid 4 days straight.
For real.
I don't want to talk to nobody.
For real.
I don't want to move. I don't want to do nothing. I just want to just wallow in my pain.
And it's like off of like 2 or 3 drinks.
Yes.
Whereas like when you're like a kid, you be like drink half a bottle of vodka and the next day you're like, let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it again.
And no more. No more.
No.
No more.
Those days have a long past.
Right. But there's a whole cohort of men here that like still be doing that.
Well, I mean, I guess if you know, like you said, if this is not your settle down stage, that's what you're gonna be doing. But I also feel like there's a lot of men out here that are looking at least to possibly settle down. I do have a few friends that, you know, they're looking. You know, they're searching, but at the same time, I think they have the same thoughts towards women. Like, you know, a lot of it's career-driven, career-based, and there's a lot of options.
There's a lot more women in Austin than there is men, so that's part of it. Yeah. And I feel like we live in a very now surface culture where like people are like, I am a challenging woman. If I'm going to be with somebody, I'm going to challenge you to be better. I want to be invested in you. I'm not just going to say yes, chef, to everything. Like, let's be partnership, right? That's what I was modeled. That's what I want. And I've had a conversation with a couple of my friends, one of them specifically, that she's very similar to me. And like, I would classify her as an alpha woman. She looks physically very different than me. She's way shorter, small, blonde, petite, but very alpha, incredibly smart, so smart. And I've had conversations with her like, she said to me, she's like, we're not easy women. We're not just going to say yes. We're not just going to go along with everything. We're going to like challenge the persons that we're with. We're intellectual. We're very smart.
You're not microwavable.
Nah. And like, I refuse to dumb myself down for somebody because then I'm just like hurting me in the process. And then the last thing I'll say is like, calling a spade and calling myself out, like, I don't think I'm fully emotionally available yet. I think there's a lot of stuff that I am still working through. A lot of things that I've had a lot of trauma in my past, and I've worked through a lot of it. But part of the next step of my working through it is like exposure therapy, and then I need to like expose myself to these things and then assess my reaction and then why, and then come back to the drawing board. Okay, what went wrong here? What did I do? And then kind of come back in. So I would say for me, as much as I would love, like, I do want a husband. I do desire that partner. But, like, right now I'm more in the stage of, like, I kind of just want to either just be friends and, like, see where that grows into, or just casually going on dates. And I just want to, like, practice, like, being around a man and, like, receiving that energy and also being myself in front of somebody, and, like, feeling safe in that energy exchange, because that's not always something that I felt great at. And the last thing I'll say is the apps, while it's easier to connect with people, it's also, what I realized very recently is that it sets a precedent for, like, we are going on a date. You're not trying to get to know me first. You're like, hey, I want to date you. Right. And that, I realize, for me personally, feels like a lot of pressure, and that there's already expectations. And I'm, like, still in the baby stages of, like, I just want to be able to be around a man and, like, trust them, and, like, not necessarily in the platonic sense, but, like, I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me, but, like, hey, let's be friends first and get to know each other and see if we're compatible without adding in anything else. And when you go on a date from an app, there's already this expectation, from my experience, of, like, hey, I want to date you, or hey, I want to date you so I can get in your pants, or hey, I want to date you so we can move to the next level. Right. And I'm like, yo, let's, like, slow this down. And then finding that energy exchange of, like, pursuit and receiving that, it's just, like, I overthink everything. Yeah. But that's, like, the honest answer is I'm still trying to, like, navigate all that. So for me, I'm making it a goal for the second half of 2023. I want to get out there more. I want to just do more things. I want to put myself in, because if I sit at home and wait for God to bring somebody to my doorstep, can he do that? Yes. But there's much more fruit to be found in tilling the soil and going outside of my comfort zone and putting myself out there. So my challenge for my therapist, by the way, if you don't go to therapy, go to therapy. Find yourself a therapist who challenges you. Pamela, the woman I go to, is great. She asks me horrible questions that keep me up at night. Like, do you actually accept yourself? I don't know, Pamela. I really don't know. I don't want to answer that question. But one of my things I've been working through is not feeling threatened when men notice me, because I tend to, like, associate that with being objectified, and I'm trying to, like, undo that thought process. And so just looking at somebody and smiling at them, especially if I find them attractive, because I'm very quick to be like, you know what I mean? Because I'm afraid. But my thing, I'm supposed to smile at strangers and talk to one person this week, randomly. So baby steps.
It's baby steps, but that's okay. I think one thing too is, like, there's no rush, right? Society will tell you, like, if you're not 30 and you don't have kids, you don't have a family, if you don't have a house,
especially in the church,
then you, like, what are you doing? You failed, right? Like what's happened? What's wrong with you? And that's not the case. I mean, honestly, I think that I've met beautiful and seen beautiful families, and they have their first kid when they're 40, you know, and they're well into their 80s, living their best life. Their kids are well taken care of, and it's like, why is that? Why is that type of family dynamic? Why is that so frowned upon? You know, you're 80 years old and your kid is now turning 40 something, and I don't have much time with my kid, so it's going to be different if you have them 10 years earlier. You know, like, I've never really understood the rush. So I agree, like, you should take your time. You should say, hey, you know, let's be friends. Like, let's see if, I mean, you never know. You might meet a guy and his friend is hotter and he likes you and you want to go talk to him. Now it's like, I don't, you know, I'm just, you just never know. It's okay to be friends, and I think that's the best way to make connections. That's the best way to progress yourself in any type of, like, in business, let's say. You can go out and meet plenty of connections. If you don't have a good, let's say, romantic relationship, but now you have a great platonic relationship, well, maybe that person in the future can help you business-wise or in other ways. And it's just like, you never know what door that is, so don't label it as soon as you open it.
100%.
And I think a lot of people, sometimes we quickly, as soon as the door opens it, we label it to what we want it to be. Well, that's not, the door hasn't shown us what it actually is yet.
Yeah, it's rigid. It's not fluid.
So I agree. I like your I guess thought process, and I know you say you're working through a lot of trauma through that stuff, and I know you have a rescue puppy that I'm sure helps you through.
Yes.
What's the name of your dog?
Rex. WRECKS.
Okay.
He's named after the company that I had in rodeo. It was called Rodeo Rex. So he was a little mascot. But yeah, Rexy's like, he and I have the exact same personality.
Yeah.
So funny. But he's also taught me a lot about like trust and forgiveness, especially. And yeah, just I get so emotional when I think about him. He's 10, so it's just like it's a whole thing. But he's given me a reason to live when there were a lot of times when I felt like there wasn't a reason, and has saved my life in more way than one. And I almost gave him back because he was destroying everything, and he's my first dog. When I first got him, he destroyed literally everything, like manically destroyed things. And but I remember thinking like, this dog was thrown away. He was owner surrender, and I was like, how many times have I been thrown away? And I'm not going to do this to him. So we stuck it out, and he is my best friend, my pride and joy, my everything. And I'm really grateful that I have him, because in this season of singleness, I think it'd be so much harder if I didn't have a little warm body next to me at night. Or, he's so in tune with my emotions. He's not a trained like emotional support dog, but like
He knows you.
every time I suffer from anxiety attacks, and when I feel it coming on, like especially he comes to work with me, and a lot of times I get overwhelmed at work just with like the things or just life in general, and he'll just come and like quietly sit next to me and be like, I'm here. And so he's been such a blessing to me in so many ways. And I think that it's also taught me that like as scary as the triggers of your trauma are, so for example, like he's very scared of like loud noises. I don't know what happened with him. Thunder's terrifying to him. A lot of different things like that, yelling of any sort. And he still gets afraid, but then he's very quick to like come back to homeostasis. And he looks to me for like, hey, are things okay? And so he's actually really helped me to manage my emotions. Because I told you, I'm diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which essentially means that I have really hard time regulating my emotions, and I have ADD as well, so which also is hard to regulate emotions with ADD, so it's like, man, it's so hard. But he's actually really taught me, like forced me to, when I didn't even know how to like regulate my emotions and like downplay them, not to like dissociate from them, and not to like be like, oh, they don't exist, but to like, instead of it being like this, be like, hey, how do we like deal with it in this kind of capacity? Because when I get dysregulated, he gets dysregulated, and he always thinks it's his fault. Similar to me. I always think it's my fault. He always thinks it's his fault. And so watching him think that has broken my heart, to where it's actually helped me to be like, okay, like how do I think about my emotions? It was the first step before I even started going to therapy of really starting to do that. So he's been such a and God's taught me so much through this dog. So many lessons about like how pain right now or discipline right now isn't for me to like have pain or discipline. It's for like my own good and my own safety. And it's a lot of like what I've tried to teach Rex of like, hey, like I'm not trying to be like mean to you or like harsh or whatever it is, right? If I like pop the leash or whatever, like if he's gonna go across the street and I like pull him back, it's so that he doesn't get hit.
Yeah. And
like one time that happened when I was first kind of like teaching him how to like not just walk across the street, where I'd had to like kind of drag him back, right? And the Lord was like, that's what I've been trying to teach you. That it's not for you to be uncomfortable right now, but it's to save you from death. And he's taught me so many lessons like that through Rex. And just about, like I said, like forgiveness, right? Like, yeah. I wasn't always as calm or level-headed or when he was younger, and I still feel like so bad about things or in general how he's handled some situations, and nothing like insane or nothing horrible, but I just have a lot of guilt, and like he doesn't remember any of that. Or if I like yell at him, I'm like, dude, why are you being like, go do something like at work? He'll like want to like hang out with me, or he does this thing where he jumps up on the chair and he like puts his paw on me, he wants a treat, or like do this thing like this because he wants a treat. And sometimes I'll be like, go away, just go somewhere that's not here so I can focus. And like he just wants time with me, but I'll just raise my voice, not like yelling, right, but just not nice either. And I always feel so bad of like, he's getting older, this is valuable time with him, why am I annoyed that he wants to spend time with me? At the end of the night, I feel so guilty. And he's never ever, he doesn't remember, he's a dog. But I feel like God's been trying to teach me, because I was raised Jewish. I know you want to talk about this, but I was raised Jewish, and like there's a lot of like Jewish guilt's a real thing. And I don't know why. There's a Catholic guilt, Italian, whatever, Jewish guilt. Like I just feel like guilty about a lot of things, and like Rex just forgives me for everything, and it's really taught me about like how to let go and to not beat myself up about stuff that like people don't even remember, people don't care about. So yeah, hopefully that like I do not beat my dog. I do not abuse my dog. I don't like. So I don't want people thinking about that. He's literally my everything. But I'm not as like. And then the example that I give, like I just get annoyed a lot more than I would like to be, and even just raising my voice a little bit or saying going away to me is awful because I love him so much. So even something as small as that just like grates away at my soul. But just remembering that, like, I am forgiven all the things. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I mean, like, again, like, God, whenever you ask for forgiveness, he casts it as far from the east and the west. Like, he does not remember it anymore. And it's so crazy how dogs are very similar. You know, I like to believe that God has breathed his soul and his life into every living thing around us. And that's why everything is so connected. And that's why you see pure love in certain animals, like a dog. I mean, it's going to love you regardless, no matter what. If you get upset with them, in 30 minutes, it's going to be right back in your face, asking for hugs and kisses, because they just love you. They want to, like you said, spend time with you, be there with you. And it's similar to how God is. He just wants to spend time with you. He wants to be with you. Yeah. And oftentimes, we're the ones that say, go away, I can handle this, I got this, when he's like, no, you need me. So I'm going to show up and sit right here next to you regardless. When you start spiraling out of control, you know I'm right here, right next to you. That's the beauty behind, and you see, and it's so cool how you can see the Creator, his love in such a small thing as an animal and a dog. And you see it in horses, you see it in so many animals. You know, it's this innate love for the person that they have right in front of them. And sometimes that's all that they see. Mm-hmm. It's just what's right in front of me. And sometimes I wish that we can go back and get to that point of, like, what's just right in front of me. Going back to the whole dating thing, when I said there's a whole bunch of options, sometimes I feel like for men, the one thing that we can get better at is realizing that it's about what's in front of you. It's not about the options that you have behind it. And oftentimes we get to looking around, and that's why you see this I'm not gonna settle down right now in Austin. You know, it's, and I can't say, hey, you know, like a lot of these people are getting right out of college, whatever. You know, I can't say, you know, that this is what they should be doing, because I was once in that position too, right?
Me as well.
Right.
But the person who you were then is not the person who you are now.
Right. And, you know,
forgive yourself for that too.
Exactly. And it's all about growth. And that's what's dope. And I'm glad that you kind of, you know, leaned on God for that growth. You know, again, like you said, you were Jewish and now you are Christian. And so it's like, how was that transition? Like,
crazy. I still sometimes like feel so foreign, like especially with people who grew up in church or things that come even the concept of forgiveness, right? Like no matter what you do, you're forgiven. It's like such a foreign concept to me, because, you know, the Torah has 613 commandments, right? There's like prescriptive in the Old Testament, like what retribution needs to happen in order for you to like be forgiven. Or even the Jewish holiday of the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Those are the most holy holidays. Rosh Hashanah is the start of the new year, and there's a period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. So you're supposed to repent for all your sins. And in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, you're literally supposed to go to every single person that you have wronged and ask for forgiveness. And whatever it is that year that happened, you're supposed to swallow your pride and talk to those people and ask for forgiveness. And then on Yom Kippur, it is a day of fasting. And there's also Jewish people believe, and it is still it's still my culture, it's still my people. I consider myself both. I wear both a Star of David and a cross because my Jewish culture is who I am, and that's how I grew up. And there's so much beauty in the rituals and the traditions and the holidays and everything else. But the Jewish people believe that on Rosh Hashanah is written, your name is written in the book of life. And depending on how you conduct yourself in that time period and how you repent and how you atone, then on Yom Kippur, your name is either sealed in the book of life for another year of life or it's not. And in that time period is when it's decided whether you will live another year or not. And on Yom Kippur, like, I have such vivid memories of going to temple and prayers often called davening. And it's this like very like rocking back and forth, meditative. And then on Yom Kippur, you're really beating your chest and you're repenting. And a lot of the prayers are for like confession. And so that's like my background of forgiveness and repentance and all these different things. So when I came to Christianity, and it's a very, very long story. A lot of people had a hand in it. There was a woman that brought me into her home. Her name is Tabitha, and she didn't really know me at all, knew my Rodeo Rex page. A series of crazy circumstances. I had nowhere to live. I was living in my van, but I didn't have an AC, and it was like July in Denton, Texas, which is like awful there. It is so hot. And she's like, "You're not doing that. You'll come live with me. Let me live on our couch, me and Rex, treat us as one of her kids, never ask for anything." I lived with another friend of mine, Mary Peters, who's one of the best rodeo photographers in the whole world. After a series of really horrible, broken things that happened to me, invited me to Montana to come live with her for a couple months, learn from her. Her husband, John, found me the van that I lived in. Awesome. Once again, like, really ministered to me, loved me without wanting anything in return. And that's not really how I grew up. That's not how the people around me were. I think as much as Judaism is beautiful, we are a guarded people, having been persecuted for like our entire existence, right? There is this sense of, in my opinion, us and them. And it's just bred out of fear and trauma of the Holocaust and all these different things, right? And so, going back to the forgiveness thing, I still struggle with that. Like, God, do you really forgive me? You're not just going to like come back and be like, gotcha, you're actually not forgiven. It's really been really challenging for me to believe that God loves me no matter what, to believe that I am forgiven no matter what. And I've done a lot of stupid shit in my life. And I've hurt people, and I've done things I'm not proud of, and I've been a part of things I'm not proud of. And in my mind, my brain is almost like, these are different chapters, that it feels like I'm a different person in these parts of my life, honestly, than who I am now, like completely. I tell people some stories in my past, and they're like, there's no way you did that. That's not who you are. And I'm like, but like I did, and I did. But coming to faith, like Christ just called to me, and I'm really grateful. He speaks to me so clearly through visions, and hearing the voice of God and different things. And there's so much that has happened to me that I can only attribute to God. Like, there's no other, like, there's no scientific explanation. There's no like coincidence. Like, there's too many coincidences. There's no way that you can explain me just being alive, honestly, B, me being free, C, me being functional, D, not having taken my own life. Like, there's so many things that I can only attribute to the Lord. So when I came to faith, I decided to be baptized. Like, I didn't understand a lot of Christianity, and I still don't, but I knew that Christ is real, and that to me was the most important thing. And so like everything else is secondary to that. And in this season of my life where I'm trying to figure out who I am, God is gently, as he always does, gently being like, come back to me. Stop looking elsewhere. So part of that for me is like getting off the dating apps, getting off of social media, like really just like being intentional and aware of right now and being present. Because being present is being with God. So yeah, does that answer your question? Like my actual story of coming to faith is like so long and so wild.
No, that answer my question is trusting him, right? Like trusting that, you are forgiven. And I think, for a lot of people that is a hard thing to grasp, but you understand, like, he forgave you when he died on the cross for your sins a long time ago. Yeah. And so, yes, you're forgiven for everything that you've done in the past and for everything that you're going to do in the future. And the only thing that he really cares about is a personal relationship with you. Yeah. And I think, I don't know too much about the Jewish culture, and I think you said y'all have like 613 commandments or something like that. That's wild. I know the Torah is Old Testament, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of laws, but from my understanding as a Christian, being raised a Christian, was that, Jesus, Yeshua, came to fulfill the law, and the law was never the problem. The problem is that none of us could keep the law. We weren't good enough to keep the law, so somebody had to keep the law for us. And because he kept the law for us, the law doesn't make us righteous. He makes us righteous, and he empowers us to live out the law, right? I don't go around killing people. I don't go around, stealing or, doing all these different things on the list of the laws, like the 10 Commandments, right? That's because he empowers me. He changes my heart to want the things and desire the things that he wants for my life. So if I'm aligning myself with him, I'm essentially aligning myself with the law. That's how I've always kind of viewed it.
Yeah, that's how I have come to understand it too. The fulfillment of the law, so that we don't have to. So going back to the Yom Kippur thing, right? Like on Yom Kippur, they would sacrifice the lamb, or they would actually put their hands on a goat's head, and they would send that goat into the wilderness as a physical representation of their sins being sent. And so, yeah, like the Lamb of God has come to take that on himself, and so that we don't have to keep doing that. And yeah, it's just really beautiful. I feel like there's so much more richness, and one of the things I'm really passionate about is like teaching Christians about Judaism, because it's very strange to me. I don't know how else to say it. It's confusing to me.
I don't know much, and I, honestly, I've always thought I was like, oh, well, that's just another, I guess, sect of Christianity in a way, but I'm starting to understand now that it's not. It is different in a lot of ways. Yes, there's some very key similarities, but even how we look at the Old Testament is just different, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome to teach Christians about that. That's huge.
Yeah, and it's always been confusing to me because I grew up in Colorado Springs, and a lot of the Christians there were very hostile towards Jews, which made me very confused, because Jesus very clearly in the New Testament grew up Jewish.
Yeah.
There is, like, he celebrated Passover. He celebrated Sukkot, like the
Jewish
festival of
traditions.
Yeah, because he was Jewish. He was there was no Christianity until he came. It was only Judaism, right? And so it's always been really confusing to me that there is animosity from Christians towards Jews, or that there is no desire to learn more about Judaism or the traditions, or even about the Passover feast. Like, I've asked a lot of Christians, like, do you know what Passover is? And they like kind of just recite some stuff from Prince of Egypt that they watched like a couple years ago, right? But like there's so much richness there, and I feel like I have a really beautiful perspective growing up Jewish and coming to Christianity, because those things that Jesus did, those festivals, those traditions, like those are my traditions. That is what I grew up with. Right. So it's always confused me as to why there isn't more, in general, curiosity or desire from a lot of Christians. I'm not saying like everybody,
Right. No.
but like
I
overall, I don't see that there's a lot of overlap when it really would, in my opinion, deepen your relationship with Jesus and help you understand like why when the people who like converted to Christianity from Judaism, why that was such a big deal. Like even Matthew, the tax collector, why was he hated so much? Because to the Jews, he was seen as a traitor.
Exactly.
And coming from a very tight-knit community, he essentially was dead to them. And yeah, I just think it's just, I have taught a couple times to my own community group. Like we did Passover this year where I taught, like we have a couple kids in our community group, so like taught them about it. I made some like different dishes and like explained to them. We did like a Seder. I explained to them what each of the symbolisms was. Like that's something I'm really passionate about because A, it's how I grew up, B, it's my people, and C, like a deeper understanding of Judaism and our traditions will help you as a Christian to further get richness from the New Testament, which has so much foundations in the Old Testament. And yeah, it's just really beautiful.
I mean, I feel like the New Testament in a way is the act of, the fulfilling of the prophecies, right?
It is, yeah.
And I when you said like Christians were mean to Jews, I find that weird too, because in a way you look at Yeshua, Jesus was the one that was the Messiah. It's just the Jews or the Pharisees at the time didn't believe that he was the son of man. But
and the Pharisees were very hypocritical, and that was well known and wide known too, right? That they were at that period in time very power hungry, and that was why Jesus quoted to them, I demand mercy over sacrifice, because they were very legalistic. And it was like, this is the way things are done, but also twisted it to their own
benefit.
Yes, yeah, which still happens today.
Still happens
all the time today.
Everywhere you
look, whether it's in a corporation, the government, whatever it is, like that's not a pharisaical problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem that still exists today in our fallen world too.
100%. And so I don't know. I found that weird because in a way, if you want to learn more about, if you want to add context to the Bible, you have to look at historically the traditions of that time when they were doing certain things, and you have to look at the Jewish culture. So I mean, you can't separate the two, right? And I think that, to your point, it just helps you have a more profound understanding of what you're reading, what you're understanding, what you're believing in, because again, I look at, in my mind, maybe I just need to do more research. I don't know. I've always thought that, yes, I'm a Christian, but Jews are my brothers and my sisters. Like we're all essentially, looking to God our Father. I haven't. Yes, I may believe that Jesus, Yeshua, is the Messiah and died on the cross for my sins. But I don't know. I've always found it because I thought, in Judaism, Jesus is real and people observe him as well. May not call him Messiah, but they still, believe that he was a real person and he was a prophet of some sort, right? So it's not like we're far off.
No, that's a fundamental difference, is that Jews believe that the Messiah has not yet come.
Right.
They believe that Jesus was a person, that he was a great rabbi.
Right.
Maybe a
but
prophet.
He wasn't the one.
He was not the one.
Right.
That's what the Jewish people
believe. And I think
believe.
that's our difference, right?
Yes, the main difference.
Right. And so I've always understood that. Anything outside of that, I guess I really haven't understood because I don't know too much. I need to do more. But no, it's just, that's super interesting. I think that you really should, like, take it upon yourself to teach, include myself, like more people about that, because I'll be honest, I don't have that many Jewish friends that are like, or are willing even to really talk about or share their traditions in that way,
Yeah, it's Yeah, we were just talking about before we started filming that like there's not that many people who convert from Judaism to Christianity. It seems like a lot more Christians going to Judaism, which is interesting, or even Kabbalistic Judaism. Um, but yeah, it's definitely something I'm passionate about. I haven't figured out how to like do it really, other than like a one-off thing where I'm talking to people in my community group, or if people ask me, I'm always like, hey, use me as a I'm also not like an expert in all things Jewish, right? Like there's that. But my sister's marrying into a very conservative, modern Orthodox family, and so if I ever need questions, I can ask them, or answers rather, I can ask them. But I think just the posture of curiosity is really beautiful, and just wanting to understand other cultures and other perspectives. And yeah, I don't really know what that looks like. I think one resource I can drop is there's an incredible podcast called the Bema podcast, Bema. Okay. And it's a Rabbi Marty Solomon, and he's been to Israel many, many times, and he goes through like the Eastern context, because we're in the West, we read it with a Western lens. But a lot of things that we look at in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, is very like prescriptive, and it's really not. It's meant to be like metaphorical. The Eastern cultures are much more like spiritual in general. And so yeah, I just highly recommend it. He goes through like literally like chapter by chapter the Bible, and gives you the Eastern context and the historical context. It's just really interesting. So if you're interested in learning more about Judaism and Christianity, those intersects, I highly recommend the Bema podcast. It's really, really good. I'm not paid for that. I just really like Marty Solomon.
So it's a free plug.
Free plug. As a marketing individual, I'm like free product placement.
I love that. Well, I also love what you said, because it's like God said in the Bible, seeking you shall find, right? Knocking, the door shall be open to you. And I think a lot of times, sometimes, we can think that, oh, well, we got the answer, so we're good. But it's like, do you have the answer? If you have the answer, we'll like solidify it 3 times over, because I can read the same Bible verse one day, and then next week it means something completely different.
100%.
So it's, in a way, it's like, continue to, go down a rabbit hole, seek the truth, find the truth. Yeah. And I think once you can get there, then you can be like, okay, now I know all these different iterations of what this can mean and how I can apply it and attach it. And oftentimes we hear something, we're like, okay, this is what it means, and we stop. Yeah. That surface level that you talk about, right?
Yeah.
And it's like being intentional means you have to dive and you got to go deep.
100%. I think one of the things, going back to the therapy thing that I was journaling about, Pam asked me, like, if you had to describe yourself, like, who are you? And I was like, oh man, I like literally could not sleep. I was like, who am I? I don't know. I really don't know. And I was feverishly journaling at like 5 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. And what I got to eventually is Christ beloved. That was how I wanted to describe myself. And I don't really know what that means sometimes, other than I am loved. And if nothing else, that's who I am. I think that's been another interesting thing from Judaism to Christianity, is realizing that my identity isn't even in me. It's not in me. It's in Christ. He's the identity that I am. And that's like such a counter to like the you culture, the do you culture that we live in, that to lay yourself down, but also to pick up something that's much better, that actually elevates who you actually are. It's like this freaking ADD triangle in my brain, right? I'm trying to like map it out. But I think that more and more I'm just trying to rest in that. You're, like you said, the deeperness of like, I am Christ beloved, period. That's the only thing I know about myself. It's the only thing that I can figure out that is truth, because my brain sometimes does crazy things, honestly. So when I feel spun out or dissociated and I don't know who I am, I can just say, I am Christ beloved, period. And that's it. And that's enough. And that's like a really beautiful, I think that's why having faith is so important, especially in today's like day and age, where I don't have answers for why things are happening. I don't have answers for why what's happening overseas. I have no answers to the insanity of this election. I don't know answers to any of it. But like, I know that God is good and that there's a bigger plan, and even when things go wrong, they're going to be okay. My life is a testament to that. But as a human being, I forget constantly that he's been there in the darkness, and he'll also be there in the light. And so one of my favorite scriptures, and also because I love Aretha Franklin, shout out Aretha Franklin, and her gospel album is the best gospel album of all time. There's a Hulu movie on it, it's called Amazing Grace, and they filmed her singing. It was amazing. But in one of her songs, she literally sings out like Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I've kind of taken to praying that, reminding myself, like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Going back to the historical thing of Judaism, like, those are shepherding people. What does a shepherd actually do? They guide, they protect, they lead, they follow. They are responsible for their herd. If a sheep hurts its leg, carries them on their back. Like, it's so important. So, yeah, like you said, you can read a scripture and it means something different. Somebody told me once there's a psalm for every season, and I love that. And yeah, and I'm talking in circles, but
no, you're good.
Sometimes I'm like, the circle didn't come back. It's kind of there, but it didn't come there.
It's like a almost like a half circle. Like
Yeah.
No, but no, that's
it's a half baked thought.
That's great. I think, at the end of the day, we'll get ready to wrap it up, and I would love to hear your thoughts on, like, like a piece of encouragement or like just something you want to bring awareness to here in a minute. But I think at the end of the day, I love the fact that, I'm sure you probably went through a lot going from the transitions that you went through as far as getting to your faith. And sometimes it's hard to stand on that. And, I just want to give you some support and love because I'm standing with you. I'm sure there's people that's going to be watching that's staying with you as well. Yeah. So, we support you and love your strength. I think that's the most important part. It's going to be hard to pick up your cross in today's age. It's about picking up what I want, what's about me. And God says that it's not about you. You deny yourself, like you said, and follow me. So it's just beautiful to see you doing that. And however we can support you here at halftime, we're gonna absolutely do that. But I would love to hear, like, if you have, like, before we wrap up, like, any like parting words that you want to give to the family, like words of encouragement, awareness you want to bring something to. I know we talked a lot today about a lot of good stuff, but anything that's really, on your mind or your heart.
Yeah, I would say really vulnerable share. God really speaks to me in a lot of visions. The way I think through my borderline and my personality, I identify different aspects of my personality with different animals. Going back to that alpha female thing, it's all going to tie in, I swear. Okay, going out and getting into that, like, two of my spirit animals are a wolf and a black panther. And the black panther is very, like, intense and, like, in control and, like, the hunter, right? The wolf is tend to be when I feel caged back up against the wall and I'm just going to slash out at everybody. And, like, don't get near me. My hackles are raised. And there's also other aspects of me, like a deer, literally a baby deer, and just, like, so vulnerable and, like, so helpless, right? And I had a moment in church last week. The sermon was on, I remember what it was on, honestly, but I remember just praying, like, God, just show me what you want me to see with this, and feeling like those dark parts of me, those powerful parts of me, for different things, for courage and for protection. I sometimes feel like there is a lot of darkness inside of me, and a lot of that is bred out of trauma or fear or chaos. And I was just really kind of meditating on, like, God, I don't feel like anybody can handle the full me. I don't know that anybody's ever seen the full personality that I have, because I dialed up, dialed down, depending on what I think people can handle, or the amount of vulnerability or rapport I have with somebody. And he just showed me this vision of, like, this black panther here and this wolf here, two apex predators, another one of my and I just saw, like, this lamb. And there's other spirit animals I have, a cobra and a eagle, right? and this lamb just walking into this circle of all these animals just bowing down to it. And this lamb coming up to this panther, and this panther's raging in its face, and it's gonna like slash its face off. And this lamb just like, in a very human-like way, just like going like this to this panther. And like just soothing it, saying like, it's okay, you're not gonna scare me. Yeah. I start sobbing because to what that meant for me, and the encouragement that I would give to everybody here is that no matter what dark parts you think of yourself that God can't handle, like he can. And you don't have to hide. I feel like I tried to hide my darkest parts from the Lord of like, I don't want you to see me like that, but he already knows, which is the crazy part, that we think that we can hide it from him, right? But there's something else to be said of like why he gave us free will, so that we could willingly love him in the same way that I need to willingly give him my dark parts. And really, really vulnerable sharing all this, because like this is just the way that the Lord speaks to me, is through visions. But it really made me like, I think that's what I want to share with people, is that no matter how dark or festering or insane or scary those parts of you that you try to hide, God wants that, and he's not afraid. And so I've been really trying to like remember that this week, and I really want that to be like one of my tenets of my soul, is like, no matter what, like God is not afraid of who I am, the full me. And if you ever feel like you can't be your full self for whatever reason that is, like you can be with the Lord. So that would be my parting thought.
I love that.
I wasn't going to share that, but it kept being in my brain. And so I was like, I knew that's what God wanted me to say. So
I'm glad you shared it, because I think at the end of the day, he's the one that created us. He knows he counts every hair on our head. He knows every detail about us. So why would we be so scared to go tell him our darkness, right? And you see that at the beginning of the Bible, whenever after Adam and Eve, after the fall, like they hid from him. He knew what happened. That's why he came. Come talk to me. Where are you?
Mm-hmm. It wasn't what did you do? It was where are you?
Where are you? And I think oftentimes that we go into the defense and we hide and we run.
Shame.
It's shame and despair, instead of accepting the love, even if it's hard love, accepting the love that he's willing to give us. Because a lot of people don't realize is that at the end of the day, he still made sure they were okay before the garden was closed off. Yes, they have to go out and do what they have to do, but he took care of them. And he made sure
that he clothed them.
He made sure that humanity had a way back to him before he sent them on their way. That's what a lot of people forget about that. Yeah. So it was our choice. It was our decision. We chose wrong, but he still made a way for us. Yes. And I love that. So again, with that said, we're going to make sure we put your Instagram stuff.
It's a lot of pictures of my dog.
It's
honestly.
Okay. You're gonna see a lot of reactions.
He's real cute. So
love it. But also, if you're out there, if you're thinking about the transition from Judaism to Christianity, or you're going through maybe something similar with the alpha femininity, you have a sister here that's willing to share, willing to talk with you, willing to grow with you, because it's all about community. And so, again, if you need something, reach out to her. Reach out to us here at Halftime. With that said, we appreciate y'all.
Cool. Thanks, y'all.